Didn't know what I was saying yes to, but I did. I said yes. So you start small and in safer environments, and you practice in small, safer environments. So I finally listened to my heart at age 45. But I know that there has to be something else, and something else that feeds my soul and in some regard. I can't be crying in the parking lot of the Chinese restaurant every day. I was going to say everybody stops swimming at some point, but that's not true because here I am. I totally find that if you call yourself something, you believe it. We get one life. What are you waiting for?
Welcome to Loud and Lifted. Today's episode is such a good reminder that it's not too late to do something big. In fact, it may be exactly the right time. I sit down with Jeannie Zappe, speaker, swim coach, and founder of Eternal Optimist. At 56, Jeannie completed the triple crown of open water swimming, which included a 29-mile swim around Manhattan, a 21-mile swim across the English Channel, and a 21-mile swim across the Catalina Channel. Now, that most of us can't relate to. But what I love most about Jeannie's story is that this isn't about endurance swimming. Before all of this, she spent 20 years in information technology, serving in several senior leadership roles within higher education. Then, in 2010, she made a major pivot, listened to her gut, and reinvented herself as a swim coach, returning to something she loved earlier in life. In 2021, she launched the Eternal Optimist, a motivational speaking and swim coaching business. So yes, Jeannie has accomplished some extraordinary things that most of us can't even wrap our head around. But the bigger reason I wanted to have her on is because her story speaks to something so many women wrestle with quietly. Did I miss my window? Is it too late to reinvent myself? Can I still do something bold, meaningful, and maybe even a little crazy? Jeannie's whole message centers around one powerful question. What if I can? And honestly, that is a much better question than the ones most of us tend to ask ourselves. This conversation is about courage, confidence, reinvention, and what it looks like to stop counting yourself out before you even begin. Welcome to Loud and Lifted, Jeannie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Betsy.
I am glad that you're not working like a really hard week in the Cayman Islands or anything like that. You're home, you're local, and you're on a podcast. How exciting.
Yes, yes. It's a good place to be, even though
Yes.
the Cayman was wonderful. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yes. We're going to talk about why you were in the Cayman the other week in just a
yeah.
minute. So before we get into your very interesting life today, just talk us through of just your background, who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Well, at 60 years old, that's I'll try to
The
summarize
highlights.
it, this much. And I can't even believe I'm saying that number, but I am a coach from Mechanicsburg. Lived a long time in Lewisburg, and worked at Bucknell, and in a different career, which was IT support, and landed here in Mechanicsburg 15 years ago, where my coaching definitely has grown. And one thing led to another when I was getting some certification to be a better coach. I discovered open water swimming, and a 1 mile swim around a lake in 2010 has led to channels and channels and channels.
So you grew up doing the traditional swimming in a pool inside of high school, whatever, rec center type of swim. And then at what age did you decide that you should go to open waters?
I was kind of a late onset swimmer, which sounds kind of crazy at 8th grade, kind of late. I grew up with an above ground pool in the backyard, and my sisters and I, doing handstands and making whirlpools. But my parents always thought it was really important that we know how to swim. And I took swimming lessons at Knoebels. And when we moved in right before 8th grade, we moved to a school that had an indoor pool. And they put us on the swim team. My mom and dad put me in adult swim lessons the summer after 7th grade. And I did not fit in, clearly. And the coach came over and went, "Get out of there and go on the swim team. You'll learn everything you need to learn on the swim team." And that was probably, a big understatement. And so I became a swimmer in high school, and in Bloomsburg at Central Columbia, and loved it. It was my thing. And but I chickened out of swimming at Penn State. I just didn't know anything about collegiate swimming, and I didn't even try, and didn't walk on, didn't contact the coach, nothing. But I continued to swim and swim for fitness my whole life. And I raced a little bit in my mid 40s, I think, in a pool, and then I don't know. I got certified in efficient freestyle, teaching efficient freestyle, and everybody in the class seemed to be triathletes or open water swimmers. And here I was, an IT person, coming to get certified in efficient freestyle coaching, and and then I thought I should try it out, and that was in 2010.
So at that point, you decided, hey, I mean, swimming's always been a part of your life. It's been a passion, something you're comfortable with. But then it seems like you probably were really stepping outside your comfort zone of entering these open water, which is a whole level of swimming, right? Like you talk about swimming the English Channel or in water outside Manhattan, like that just gives me anxiety thinking about, letting alone the distance. So
Yeah,
what made you want to do that? And especially at that age, you weren't 25, right? This wasn't
yeah.
like out of college.
I think I
How
was
did you kind of come
45.
to that?
I think I was 45,
Yeah.
and I think the first time I went into a lake in Hazleton and did a 1 mile swim, I felt it was a combination of swimming and adventure. And it scared me, but it excited me more than it scared me. And I have a quote all over my house that says, do something, I think it's right up there. Do something every day that scares you.
Hmm.
And I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt, but I'm not sure. And I think it scared me, but it was so exciting. And I swam a mile so easily in freestyle. And in high school, I was not a good freestyler. I was a breaststroker, butterflyer. Freestyle perplexed me. I just didn't know how to make it feel good or be fast. And but now that I was coaching, and I thought, if I want to be a better coach, I better walk the walk. I can't just tell people how to swim more efficiently. I have to do it. So that it was like my lab. Like
Hmm.
I learned how to coach by doing it. And 1 mile led to 2 miles, led to 3 miles, led to six, led to swimming down the Hudson in various stages of hard swims, and eventually being invited onto some relays around Manhattan, across the English Channel and Catalina Channel. I did them all in 6-person relays, where I didn't know what I was saying yes to, but I did. I said yes. And at the West Shore Y pool, a friend of mine who was 78 years old at the time said, "Do you want my spot on a Manhattan relay? I'm busy that day." And I didn't know what I was saying to Ted, but I just said yes. And before I knew it, I had an email that night welcoming me to the relay. I didn't know what I was doing swimming around Manhattan, but
So
I
after you
think I
said
was
yes,
just so
did you
excited.
have did you have second thoughts? Did you, after you saw that email, were you like, "Oh my gosh, what did I get myself into?" Like how did you kind of keep going forward?
I asked them, I said, "Don't you want to know anything about me?" And they're like, "Nah, you're replacing Ted. You're fine." So I thought, okay, I can do this. Yeah, I had second thoughts. And then when I got there, they said, "You're starting off. You're leading us. Like, so you have to jump in down in the Battery, looking at the Statue of Liberty, and start swimming in the East River." But at the same time, this stuff scared me, but also I had confidence in my swimming, not in my open water swimming so much, but I had confidence in my own swimming ability, enough that I could jump in. And when you're on a relay, you're doing what you're doing for 5 other people.
Mm.
Like I'm not alone. But so there's pressure there to not go, check, please, I'm not going to jump in, which some people do. And unfortunately, they get to the English Channel and they go, check, please, I'm not getting in.
Ugh.
And that's not good. But yeah, I think I had the encouragement of relay teams and swimming for others. And I wanted to do my best. So
I love that. And if you think about that from a professional setting, right? Like we talk a lot about to build your confidence, you have to step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And people listening to this are probably can't relate to swimming the English Channel,
Yeah.
but they can think about, oh, I've been hesitant to talk up in a meeting. I've been hesitant to ask for promotion, whatever it is. It's usually probably
Yep.
verbal, not physical for most of us.
Yep.
But has a different mental sort of approach. So how do you relate that to most of us listening to this aren't going to go swim 10 miles in terms of like living that in your everyday? Like, how do we get that confidence and how do we have the opportunity to raise our hand, say something in a meeting? But how do you sort of like look at that from a professional situation?
From a normal person situation.
I mean, you said it, not me.
I was going to introduce myself as a normal person, a normal woman, mother, and but then I realized but I am normal. Like I'm not any different than anybody else.
You do extraordinary things though.
Well, thank you. I really feel like we get one life, and this is not, you've heard it before. It's not a dry run. It's
Yep.
not a practice, and we, live your life and live it well and live it big. And that from Duck Donuts and your whole previous experience and taking a risk and being a CEO and all that goes along with that. I think when I talk to people about what I do and the mental side of what I do, it's really a mental thing. Like
Yep.
people think it's a physical thing that I do, but the physical thing happens because I swim all the time, and I train, and I, like, yesterday was 5,000 yards. Today will be 5,000. Tomorrow will be something else. Um, but I think you take little steps, right? And, if it's speaking up in a meeting, start speaking up in a smaller, environment. I didn't go, in 2010 from a 1 mile swim in a lake to 29 miles around Manhattan or 21 miles across the English Channel. That took from 2010 to 2021 and 2022. So if it's reaching out to somebody that you're afraid to talk to, picking up the phone when somebody says, Betsy, you should talk to Jeannie. And, because Kara said that to you, and then you're like, hey, Jeannie, let's talk. And I say, hey, Betsy, let's talk. And so you start small.
Yep.
And in safer environments, and you practice in small, safer environments and build that confidence. So every day that I went to the pool and I did something that was a little difficult, or I went into the Hudson and swam a harder swim, I built that confidence. You know that.
Yep.
I think from your experience that you don't go from 0 to 60. I think the biggest thing that I use all the time is say yes. Just say yes. Like if somebody says at work, do you want this opportunity to lead this team? But you're out of your comfort zone. But somebody is saying that they have confidence in you.
Mm.
So why would you say no to that?
Right.
Say yes. You will figure it out. What's the worst that can happen in most cases? Like, I'm not talking about jumping out of an airplane, which I won't do, by the way. And, I will jump off of boats in the middle of the Pacific, which my son says is what his nightmares are made out of.
Yeah.
But, I wouldn't walk into a class at the Y a few years ago. I was afraid to walk into an exercise class at the Y because I thought somebody would judge me and say, you don't belong here. Like, you don't know the moves. You don't know how to lift. You don't know how to do this or that. And I found out that I walked into the Y with friends. I reached out to friends and said, do you want to go with me? And we walked in and found a very welcoming environment. So it's never what you think it is. Like, one of my favorite quotes recently is, if we can imagine the worst happening, why can't we imagine the best happening?
That's so great. That's true.
So if you take a risk, in all likelihood, it's going to work out.
Right.
In some regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit so many good points. And you're right. So many times we think we have to be 100% buttoned up before we raise our hand, take the promotion, apply for another job. And the reality is no one ever is 100% ready. But it's doing the training, to your point, that you can along the way, and then saying yes, taking that risk. Because what's the worst that can happen? In your case, there could have been some crazy things that happened swimming, but
Yeah.
in a professional setting, a lot of times it's just what's the worst that can happen? Like you might need support, you might need to get other additional feedback on how to do something,
Mhm.
but a lot of times it's moving forward and taking that risk.
But what's the best that can happen?
Yeah,
Like, what if you take a risk and your boss says, "Wow, you're a natural leader." Or what if you decide to change careers? I had a 20-year career. You changed careers.
yep,
I had a 20-year IT career. And one day I woke up and said, I'm not an IT person anymore, or I don't think I am. And I don't think this is feeding my soul. Not that every job feeds your soul. But I think I just had run the gamut
yeah,
at what I had done. I had all the positions I wanted. I got a new boss, and the boss said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I think I'm done. I
mm,
think I just did everything I wanted to do there." And I did not know that I was going to go back to coaching, which I did in college as my summer job. But I always wanted to be a coach. So I finally listened to my heart at age 45
ah,
and said, how am I going to listen to my heart? I always wanted to be a coach. And when I went off to Penn State, I just didn't know what to major
sure.
in. How could I be a coach? I thought I needed to be a teacher to be a coach. I didn't ask anybody. I just tried to solve everything myself. Isn't there a lesson in that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, and it's funny, I have an 18-year-old going to college, in the fall, and we're asking these babies essentially to make a decision about what they major in, what they want to be when they grow up. They have no idea, right? They only know what they've been exposed to. But even
Right.
as you're going through college and you get your first job, I mean, I remember that panic of being like, okay, is this what I'm doing for the rest of my life? Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to be stuck. And even, I love that you were doing this career for 20 years, and 20 years into it, you're like, you know what? I think I need to go do something different. And that takes such courage, right? And probably support around you. But what gave you that courage to say, you know what? I need to totally switch gears here and go a different direction.
I had two really good work friends who had left before me in the organization, and one left to go consult, and one was working somewhere else. And I distinctly remember them taking me out for dinner when they came back to visit, and they said, "Jeannie, you can let go. It's okay. You can let go." And I don't think if they would have told me that I could let go, I would have. I
Mm.
also came home and told my husband, I have to tell you something, and you can't say no to it. Um, and he said, "What is it?" And I said, "I have to quit my job." And he said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I don't know. But I know that there has to be something else, and something else that feeds my soul, and in some regard, I can't be crying in the parking lot of the Chinese restaurant every day, because I didn't want to install email systems anymore. You
Right.
know, Giving somebody a new email system is never good news. It's like, "Oh,
No.
we're changing technology on you again. I'm sorry."
Yay.
I was always apologizing, and "I'm sorry we're making things so difficult for you. I'm sorry the internet is up or down, or email is up or down." And I wanted to, make a difference
Yeah.
in somebody's life. So thank God that Chris said it's okay. I don't think he had a choice, but and
Kind
then
of
it
threatened
took a
him, sounds like.
while to figure out what it was I was going to do and how I was going to do it.
So, do you think you would have made that decision or felt comfortable making that decision if you didn't have the support of your friends and family?
I don't think so. I think I needed, obviously, Chris has been patient with me as I built my business and uh, rebuilt an income. I think that a lot of people didn't really, why would I leave a job like that?
A stable job, right? Like, I
It
mean,
was
you get a
stable. It
paycheck
was,
every other week.
yep. And I had leadership positions and whatnot, and I was probably somewhat good at it. But yeah, I think, I had a friend who I saw surprisingly it was my son's swim coach, at a funeral, and of all places. And he said, we need to get you coaching again. And
Hmm.
I didn't know what I was going to do when I had left my job, but I said, "Ooh, I don't know how to coach anymore." And he said, "Yeah, you do. And you're going to call me." And I haven't coached since college. And I met him at the pool. I thought we were both getting in. No, I got in and he corrected all my strokes.
Oh, funny.
And I was like, ugh, at 45, you know. But I started coaching and I coached for a while, and I got to coach my son and his friends, and it was the time of my life to share that
Oh.
with my son Matt, and his whole swim career. I got to share with him, and that was really special. And his friends.
So
Yeah,
when you were coaching beyond the technical, right, fixing people's
yeah.
performance, what were you trying to instill into, sounds like mostly kids, what was some of the platforms that you really leaned to as a coach?
That's a really good question, and I think you really get me. Even though we just met, I think I teach confidence through swimming. I teach self-esteem, and I teach self-belief, and I like them to get rid of limiting beliefs. And the vessel or the mechanism is swimming. But what I really care about is that they believe in themselves, and that if they that hard work, focus, grit. I'm sure you've probably
Love that
seen
word.
Angela Duckworth and her lovely TED Talk and book called Grit. And, focus toward a single goal um, over a long period of time, will, with a lot of grit and grittiness, will actually is more successful than raw talent and not having that
Yeah.
same work ethic. So yeah, when I coach these kids, I do a lot of I change their strokes and I change their starts and turns, and I help them with strategy, but I help them with mindset,
Hmm.
and I help them with self-belief and confidence. And everybody, not everybody, I was going to say everybody stops swimming at some point, but that's not true because here I am. But a lot of competitive swimmers will stop swimming at
Sure.
some point. And but who are they? And what did swimming do for them as part of their story? And my son texted me 2 days ago and said, sharing swimming with you growing up and having you as my coach and doing all the meets with you and everything was the greatest joy of my life.
Oh,
And I totally agree. It was the one of the greatest joys in my life to be able to share that with him, and everything that he learned through
mhm.
that process. It's really, you know, he can't tell you some of his times, but he can tell you who he swam with, what relays he was on, the difficulty that he overcame when he was injured or didn't get something that he wanted, didn't make it to a
Yep.
certain meet. Those are the things
Yep.
that build us as humans.
Oh,
So I don't really care about the swimming. I mean, I love the swimming and I have a passion for swimming,
sure.
but I love my relationships with the kids.
That's so great. I just read a stat, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it was about the percentage of women who are in leadership positions who played sports. And it didn't even have to be college. It could have been high school, club, um, that the impact it has. And it is. It's beyond sport. It's beyond swimming. It's about being able to deal with resilience and competition and building confidence to what you talked about earlier. And I think that's the part that runs parallel. And I love that my girls play sports or play volleyball because it helps to build that and it gives you the teamwork. And when someone's a challenge on your team or on your relay, there's all these parallels to this isn't just about sports. This is about like your life and how you're able to be better
It
equipped
is
when you go through these things. So kind of going back
absolutely.
to your
And
building the confidence and the limiting the beliefs. And I always show a picture when I talk about confidence of this woman who's like absolutely ripped, right? Like six pack, beautiful shoulders that I'm like, I want to look like her. Well, that's great. But if I want to look like her, I'm going to have to go to the gym, go every day, have a plan, be consistent. And that's the part where it's like, I think sometimes we disconnect of there's work that goes into building
yes,
your confidence and your courage and being able to be consistent about it because that's the hard part. We can think about it.
absolutely, absolutely.
One of your messages that I see you talk a lot about is optimism, and I love optimism. I think I'm a fairly optimistic person. So tell me how that plays into all this and into the mindset as you're working with whether it's kids in a pool or just from a professional career standpoint. How do we approach optimism?
I think that it's a choice. I think some people think that, and maybe some people are born more glass half full than others.
Sure.
But I also think it's a conscious choice, don't you? I mean,
Mhm.
it you have the choice, like anybody else, to say, you know, it's going to be a bad day, or it might just be a great day. And now it's not every day and it's not all the time, right? I think it's impossible to be optimistic all the time. And I was really worried about naming my business Eternal Optimist
Mm.
because I thought people are going to say to me, I can't have a bad day and I can't be sad and I can't be normal, just kind of like letting life
Yep.
get a hold of me. And sure enough, people do say that. They're like, but Jeannie, you're the eternal optimist. You can't have a bad day. But I can,
Mhm.
and I do. But if given the choice and when given the choice, glass half full. And I know that I've been like that. My very good college friend Sean and I always exchanged glass half full pictures and
Oh,
cards, and because he is glass half full as well. So, and I think when I was going to swim the channel and I have a crew that comes with me, I do not do any of these channels alone. They are not solo sports. They are or solo activities. My dear friends, best friends come with me and on these things, and they take care of me. They're my crew. They feed me, they encourage me.
oh,
Susan and Deb, and on the channel I had another friend named Kathy, and but Susan and Deb are like on every boat, and with me when I train. But I know that when we were going to the channel, I wanted to have a team name, and I wanted to have the word optimist in it,
mm,
and or optimism. And I was playing with things, and it was during COVID and or right after COVID. And Susan said, "We're just going to have to be eternally optimistic that we're going to get there, because England was shut down,
oh,
pools were shut down, it was a mess, and quarantine and all kinds of stuff." And I said, Susan, I think that's our name, Eternal Optimists. And so we became the Eternal Optimists, thinking that we were going to get to
mm,
England, and I was going to get the opportunity to swim, and I had to wait 2 weeks to get in. The weather was not cooperating. I went in 2 hours before my swim window closed, and into the channel. And I was optimistic. I just adopted that whole mantra that if I was going to get the chance to swim, I was going to make it to France. No ifs, ands, or buts. And they were going to get my butt to France by being on the boat. And so I think it came from just me being who I am and acknowledging that I'm a glass half full, optimistic kind of person most of the time, meant a lot of the time,
sure.
but then embodying it and calling us that. And I totally find that if you call yourself something, you believe it.
Mm,
And if you call something, you also believe it. So I'm training again for another channel, for the English channel again this summer at 60, raising money for a foundation in Pittsburgh called Clear Thoughts Foundation, which funds researchers for dementia and all kinds of dementia. And because it has hit our family very
mm,
hard. And I think that I had declared that my swimming was going to be joy. My training was going to be joy. And my time at the Y was going to be respite and joy. And darn it, it is.
mm,
Like, I don't look at it like I have to.
right.
I look at it because I want to. And I think, when you name yourself something or when you call yourself something, are you talented? Are you tough? Are you strong? Are you optimistic? Are you confident? And when you use that language, I think you believe it
Mhm.
and you
Oh,
act it
totally.
and you act it.
Yep. which can be positive or negative, right? Sometimes we have that
Totally.
negative voice in our head telling us a story that we're not ready, can't do it, whatever it is. And it's flipping that and telling yourself a different story that you'll start to believe. And again, you have to put the work in. You can't just think that and then not
You.
go work out, right? Like you have
Right.
to put the work in, but you're showing up with that mindset that it's joyful, you can do this, you're gonna achieve it. It's telling yourself a different story, which I think is so important. And again, I think optimism is such a good word that people sometimes think it's like, "Oh, you're unrealistic," or "You're
Right.
living in this dream," like, you're not
That's
be
right.
understanding how this is, and that's not what it is. Like, you still are
No.
gonna have bad days, still have to be resilient, but it's your mindset going into like, "Hey, I'm gonna get through this. I'm gonna be able to accomplish this," and just be positive about it versus, going to the negative side of things. So, I think that's really important, and people think, "Oh, I'm just kind of negative." Well, that's gonna majorly impact how you approach your personal life, professional life, whatever it is, that it has a negative impact on
It
how you
will.
show up. So I
It
love the
will.
Eternal
You will.
Optimist.
You will believe it one way
Yeah,
or another. And I think the day that I said to my I the whole "what if I can" mantra
yeah,
also showed up. Like when I one day I was sitting and that's kind of a version of optimism, right?
yes,
What if I can? Instead of saying what if I can't,
yep.
and what if I shouldn't, and what if I'm being selfish? What if this is stupid? What if this is too much? One night I said to my son, "Guess what I just did? I just booked an English Channel pilot." And that was in 2018, before I even swam around Manhattan, before I did anything big. You have to book a channel pilot that far out. But I didn't know what I was doing except that I was booking a pilot. And I sent an email to a pilot in England, threw it out into the universe, right? And maybe the universe will conspire to help me. That's another one of my mantras.
Love that.
And Matt said, "What if you make it halfway, Mom?" And I said, "Well, if I make it halfway across the English Channel, I don't think that's a bad thing. But that's not going to be my goal. My goal
Right.
is going to be I'm getting to France and I'm going to put the work in to do it. I didn't know how to yet, but I was going to figure it out." And I said to him, "But what if I can, Matt? What if I can do it? Not what if I can't? What if I can do it at 55? And then what if I can tell people about it and say, you're not dead at 55.
Right.
Maybe you're in, I just spoke at a conference a few weeks ago called Prime Time for Women, and it was on International Women's
Mm.
Day or week. And, you know, they call women at our age in our prime. Isn't
Oh,
that a great way to
yes.
talk about ourselves?
Right.
So I really do believe that, what I did at 55, I couldn't have done at 45 or 35 or 25 because I didn't have the mindset and the mental tenacity of life
Right.
and of all the things I learned in life, not just through swimming, but through, my jobs and the years that I had in, the 55 years that I had in got me to France.
Oh, I love that. So if someone's listening to this, maybe they're 35, right? And they wanna flip that mindset and they wanna have that "what if I can" instead of the fear. How do they begin? Like, how do you practically begin to just have that mindset of "what if I
Stop
can"?
saying, what if I can't? Stop saying no. Stop saying that's not me and catch yourself just don't go there, and especially as women, you know, there's so many women I know who are amazing women
Mhm.
and they put themselves down or say they can't or they shouldn't or they're not allowed to or it's selfish. I have to be a mom. I have to be a wife. I have to be this. I have to be a daughter. I have to be, and you are all those things.
Mhm.
Also, there's chapters in life, as we all
Sure.
know. The whole notion that you can have it all at once is kind of
Right.
an old one. We all tried that, right?
Yeah.
And realized that, like eating a plate of food, you can't eat everything you like in one sitting. But stop the language. Listen to yourself. And but I can't do that. My husband would never let me do that. Or what about my kids? what about your kids? Maybe you want to show them that there are no limits to what
Absolutely.
they can do. Or my mom tried and she didn't make it, but my mom tried, you
Right.
know? And my mom likes to tell me that I live 2 or 3 lives in one. And I guess I'd like to live 2 or 3 lives in one than a half a life
Sure.
in one or a partial life. We all know that when things happen in life and life gets hard and there's illness or someone is ill or you get sick or something terrible happens, we get one life. What are you waiting for? That's what I want to tell people. If
Ugh,
there's something you want to do, change a career, change your life, change a relationship, change this, change that, what are you waiting for? And maybe
that's
it's
so
not
good.
time yet, but at some point it should become time if it's important enough.
Absolutely. And saying we don't have time is, I think, one of the biggest excuses. And sometimes there's validity to that, but it's prioritizing or making a plan. Hey, maybe I can't do this
It
year,
is.
but I can plan for next year. And it's just having a plan and being intentional, and time is
It
limited,
is.
right? And as I get older and you see people get sick that never thought they'd be sick under the age of 50 or whatever it is, like, I mean, just things happen. So trying to be as to your point, like living your best life and what if I can, and taking advantage of that, I think is really important. And I think as we get older, we
Yeah.
start to realize that we're not here forever, right? Like everyone's not here
I think
forever.
we
So
we
spend your
think we
time the
have
way you want to.
unlimited
Yeah.
days. And you have an 18-year-old now and you're wondering how the heck, she became 18.
Yeah.
And the the days are long, the years are short, and what are you waiting for? If there is something that you want. Um, a lot of people are just content
Yeah.
and they don't want to be out of their comfort zone. They don't want to be, my mom always is like, why would you want to be cold? And, why would you want to you know, hurt,
Right.
or, challenge your
Be
body?
challenged
You
body.
know,
Yeah.
um, and other people do that too. They're like, why would you want to do that in 60-degree water? I don't know why. It's just
But it's the
adventure.
accomplishment. I mean, I
Yeah,
I
the
never swam. I
accomplishment,
was a
the
runner.
challenge.
Yep, it was a challenge of, I participated in some Ragnar race. It was like a 200-mile race relay, but, it was overnight. Like that last race where you hadn't slept the night before for 30 minutes, like your whole body hurts, but it was more than just the physical part. It was the mental part. I'd be like, I can't let my team down. I have to only run 3 miles this morning. Like, get your shit together. Let's go. Like,
Yeah,
this is the conversation in my head to myself. Like, what if I can? What's the worst that can happen? Even if I end up walking, like
if
it's
you walk
just
it, who
right,
cares? You're showing up,
right. Yep,
and I think that's the bottom line, like, show up and
yep,
show up for yourself.
yes,
Who else is gonna show up for you?
right.
Like, this is your life.
No, that's
You're the
awesome.
author of your life.
That's great.
Whatever it is, you're the
Whatever it is,
author.
write your story, but write something.
Write something. Yeah,
Oh, I
and
love this.
no regrets, like, I don't wanna hear, "I'm 70 and I should have."
Mm,
No regrets, man, just what's the worst that can happen?
yeah, that's so good. Well,
Usually,
Judy, this has been so
usually.
great.
Yeah.
I love this, and best of luck in your upcoming. What do you have coming up this summer? What's the race?
Another English channel.
Another English channel at 60
Yeah,
years
I
old.
back when I was 55, I thought, "Wouldn't it be cool if I could do it at 60?"
And here you are.
And
Well,
I
we expect an
decided,
update once you complete it, because obviously you
yeah,
will, and you'll
I will.
kill it. So we'll wanna hear
Thank
that
you.
news so we can celebrate you this summer.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you. I really love this conversation with Jeannie. Yes, her accomplishments are incredible. I mean, completing the Triple Crown of open water swimming at 56 is objectively wild in the best possible way. But what stayed with me most was not just what she did, it's what her story represents. Because this was a woman who had already built a successful career, she'd already done a lot. And still, there was another chapter waiting for her, a bigger one, a bolder one that required courage, discomfort, discipline, and a whole lot of belief. I think that's what makes this conversation so powerful. So many women are high functioning, capable, responsible, and accomplished, but still quietly wondering if they're too late, too old, too far down one path to choose another, too established to start over, or maybe too practical to chase something that feels bold or deeply personal. And Jeannie's story pushes back on that. It reminds us that reinvention is still available, that meaningful ambition does not expire, that confidence is not something you either have or you do not. It's something you build by moving, trying, stretching, and sometimes looking a little crazy along the way. And maybe most importantly, it reminds us to ask a better question. Not what if I fail, not what if I'm too late, not what will people think, but what if I can? So if this episode spoke to you, send it to a friend, send it to a woman who is in a season of wondering what is next or feeling the pull towards something bigger, even if she can't fully name it yet. And if you're enjoying Loud and Lifted, make sure you follow, rate, and share the show. It helps us keep bringing more of these honest conversations to women who are still growing, still evolving, and still becoming. Until next time, stay loud and stay lifted.